All right.
He's getting the meat sweats. That's what you're going to say, right?
No, I was like, Jeff is getting trolled by somebody on Facebook.
Getting trolled by somebody.
Which is hilarious to me.
So let's get started, right? Refresh Friday, episode 15, I believe. This is DealerKnows versus Dealer Refresh. Welcome aboard, Joe, Bill, Shaun. It's been a while.
It has.
It has been. It's been too long, my friend. So today, what are we talking about today? We're going to get into data versus our gut. What happens at the dealership, analytics, all that good stuff. What can we still measure with our gut versus what should we be measuring with data and analytics and all that good stuff? There's still lots of things out there. I think us as dealerships, we still want to measure with our gut instinct.
It's worked for us for the last 100 years. Why stop now?
I mean, I think that our industry believes that a sale, a quality sale, a profitable sale is made with emotion. And everything we've trained our sales and our teams and ourselves to believe is that emotion is what drives a person's decision. And over the years of people becoming more informed online, data, factual information is starting to sway their decisions more than others. Reviews, specs, cost of ownership, everything. And as the consumer's mindset changes and what influences their decisions, I think dealers need to embrace and adapt what technology exists to allow them to better measure their effectiveness based on what's real and factual opposed to what works. And I will share just one quick story. I was training a dealer in Georgia, and I sat down with one of their top sales guys, and they distribute leads, internet opportunities to all salespeople. And I was reviewing some of his responses, and he was very short. I would go so far as saying he was curt in his responses. It was all capitalizations. Everything was capped. It would be like 2 sentences long. It would say, hey, great news, we've got it. Give me a call. I've got a few other people interested in it. Call me at this number, all caps. That would be it.
And I probably got like the best response.
And that's how they talk in Georgia.
I mean, thanks for the quick short story, Joe. That's really short. I mean, you're still going.
Should have had a God bless at the end, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart.
There you go.
Yeah, but what I asked was why do you do this? And he said, because everybody that sees it knows it's personal. They know it's from me, and people want personal responses. I do not disagree with that. What I disagree with is where does he come up with that assessment? Like, where is the data connected to him thinking that? You know, I understand the logic. The logic is it looks personal because it's stupid. You know, it's so simple, it's stupid, and it looks personal. And God knows no one would create an automated response like this. So they know it's real and they fancy speaking to a real person. But the truth is, just because it sounds good in your head doesn't mean it's working. And for him, it wasn't working. So that is where a lot of the things that we work on at DealerKnows and a lot of things we train.
So you say it wasn't working, but he felt as if it was working.
Well, how did you prove him wrong?
How did you prove him wrong?
Well, he's not handling internet leads anymore, so I don't need to. I just.
Well, that's not an answer. I mean, were you going into the CRM and looking at response rate, et cetera?
Listen, a person who's selling 20 cars a month on nothing more than sheer will typically doesn't need to just throw away internet opportunities. So some people want control for the sake of having control. Some people want leads because they don't want to feel that something is like an opportunity is getting by them and they feel that they deserve it. Much like, managers want want to control everything under the showroom sun because they want control for the sake of having it, not because data suggests that they'd be the best at handling those responsibilities. So everything that we do, and one of the reasons that we're really excited, DealerKnows is really excited to have Shaun aboard, is that so much of what Bill and I have spoken about over the last 10 years, and even before while we were in retail, is is sort of the operational sales side of the dealership. Everything when it comes to maximizing your opportunities and maximizing your investments. And while Bill and I, and a lot of the ways we serve dealers has always been how to invest their money and how to rededicate their dollars to attract higher quality traffic. The truth is we're dangerous on those topics, but Shaun has been deadly. It's something that he's been immersed in a long time. So everything that we do is, consumers bring us aboard, not just to train their teams, but as trusted advisors. And I will steal one of Shaun's old sayings when he and I used to travel around back in the day is he will always tell dealers the biggest thing that they're seeking today is to find somebody they can trust. And I would say it's one of the things that we've really hung our hat on at DealerKnows is the benefit of not taking money or referral dollars or reseller dollars from vendors allows us to maintain objectivity or bias against some people that would be willing to pay us. But for that reason, I will say everything we do is to hold people accountable to their actions, hold people accountable to the dollars they're spending, hold vendors accountable to how they're spending the dealer's money. And
so you say Shaun's deadly. You say you guys are great, but Shaun's deadly. Was that assessment through gut or through data?
Well, here, historically, I don't think that you develop a reputation for improving on the vendor side organizations the way that Shaun has, without having made those vendors successful and serve their dealers better. So, yeah. So I would say I want to say gut because let's face it, some of the people on this call are some of my best friends in the world. Alex, but I mean everybody else. And with that said, so I would trust Shaun implicitly anyway, regardless, out of gut. But thankfully, his experiences on the vendor side of the world have proven that the data doesn't lie. He can make organizations successful, and he can help dealerships themselves. And we're going to be looking to not have him do that just for one organization or for one company, as he had for Reynolds and Reynolds or Reach Local or Dealer On, but he's going to be able to do it for really to help our dealers maximize their investments with all of their vendors.
Hey, Shaun.
So, by the way, we do have a running contest going to see who of our Refresh Friday hosts can promote their company the most.
Well, yeah, Joe's already got that beat. Shaun, I was wondering if you could just step back
Wait. I've only watched one of these.
Shaun, your head is getting larger and larger, so maybe you can just step back about 3 feet. Joe is your head has got to be inflated by now. There we go. Now we can see it in there. Hey, you just came from the vendor side, of course, working with Dealer On. That's no surprise to anyone or secret. And if I'm not mistaken, your main focus at that time was right around paid search, correct? I mean, that was. It seemed like that was when you first started. That was sort of your pioneer.
Yeah. Really, since the days of being the director of automotive for Reach Local, everyone thinks paid search guy, paid search guy, paid search guy.
Well,
I'm fine with that. It's actually kind of a blessing in disguise to just think, oh yeah, you're the paid search guy, because then I can absolutely carve people up with all the other stuff that they weren't paying attention that I know that too. So that's all fine. But the Dealer On for a little over 4 years. Came in as VP of marketing. That was really about blowing up the Dealer On brand. Let's go spend money on big parties. Let's go do some storytelling. Let's do some whiteboard videos to promote NADA. Let's just do some silly stuff that really captures. And most of you guys kind of know that culture of Dealer On is they, kind of work hard, play hard, just fun. But that message really wasn't conveyed into the industry. So the first 2 years was VP of marketing. The last 2 years was VP of business development. Okay. And that was much more of let's tap into Shaun's ability to actually sell websites, SEO and SEM. So yeah, it was kind of like, equally split into both marketing and sales.
I'm sure you miss your friend Greg.
Well, I don't miss him because I talk to him all the time. He lives right here in Dallas. My son actually works for him.
Wow.
My son is on the SEO team at DealerOn. So yeah, I just.
What were some of the things that you with speaking in dealerships, what were some of the things that you were able to hone in on that maybe dealerships were measuring with their gut and they should have been using actual data, or vice versa?
Well, obviously search is a great topic. Both the organic and paid sides of search. There's a lot of gut. I think that before completely trying to give you a decent answer on this, I think it's worthy for whoever might be in our little echo chamber with us today, really thinks about what actually are the primary drivers for gut instinct. What makes us have a gut instinct? It's usually driven by, we have some experience, we have maybe some relationship, if it's relative to a person or relative to a company. So, gut instinct isn't always just, well, let's just hope that some shit works, right? Oftentimes a gut instinct is actually driven by some points of knowledge, perhaps even a little bit of data. But back to a paid search or an organic search example. Just yesterday, I was in Houston speaking to a group of dealers for one particular OEM. And, I asked the dealers in the room, why are you actually doing anything with search? And are you investing on both the organic side and the paid side? So handful of them say, yes, we're in. Well, what are the results, right? If you're focused on SEO, what side of SEO are you focusing on? Local, technical, both, right? Because some of the website providers, some of the SEO providers are really, really strong with local SEO. They have it down. They're actually chasing all the right signals for that. But if you go and ask the dealer, well, tell me how that's working for you. What are you tracking? What's most important? They're like, I don't know. So Greg's a good example. There have been others where you trust your gut that, well, I got Greg Gifford. I got Gifford, right? He's most visible. He's all over the place because you can trust that SEM Rush isn't bringing him to Russia, or, Brighton isn't bringing him to the UK twice a year if he doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's an easy place for a dealer to use their gut instinct that we're probably at least on the right path. But try to get one of those dealers to actually tell you what their organic traffic lift was from actually starting to use, whether it's Greg or anyone else for a local SEO play. They struggle to actually give you the data points. And there are real data points, even from, and I'm not trying to plug DealerOn or anyone else, because I'm sure that some of the other website providers that focus local SEO can do the same, where they can take a dealer before their efforts, local SEO, and after, and instead of just trying to tell here's where you are ranking differently organically, here's actually where your organic traffic lifted because of all of these things we're doing. That is provable. That you can scientifically prove that with a dealer. Same thing that you can do on the paid search side, pre and post. Sometimes even provider to provider, because not all paid search or SEO providers are created equal. But anyway, that's a little of my thought there, without trying to be promotional.
I mean, and almost all of us are from the dealer side. I think as what we see when we go in to consult for dealers, a lot of the SEO firms or SEM firms do nothing more than pay for some portal similar to Google Analytics to skew data or send it back. Or heck, we've seen SEO companies do nothing more than take a screenshot of a dealer's couple dashboards inside of analytics and send it back and be like, okay, here's your monthly report. Like, analytics right back at you. And maybe they'll show a 1% tick here, 1% down here. They don't show causation. They don't show what did we create? Where was the time spent? What happened that caused a 2% lift in one place? And so the fact that, Shaun and we try to help identify and diagnose and investigate where dealers are either struggling or where they're having success, because not all vendors reporting is based around factual data.
Or is it even accurate? I saw, especially with some of these older programs that have been around for quite some time, had multiple developers working on them. They all have different interpretations of what something means. So they'll do a totally different data point in one report and call it the same thing as another data point in a different report. And it's very confusing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking gut versus data. This is where we run into a problem.
It looked like he was going to speak, but then he didn't. So, I mean, when you talk about data points, you look at something as simple as...
cut him off there, Joe.
No, he froze.
He finally spoke, and there you go.
Pause him.
Yeah.
I bet you Kershner
Okay.
paused. But
no,
what
I was going to say really quick is that when we're talking about data and analytics and so on and so forth, I think just to tie it in with the dealer is that they don't have a gut instinct on this, because to Alex's point, the data is always different. And somebody says, oh, this metric is the magic metric. And then somebody else says, oh, this metric's the magic metric. And I was at my 20 group, and hey, this company said now they have the magic metric. And so their gut's going to be confused, because I think all of us, in retail, like I said, we develop this intuition or a gut feeling, but that's based on all the experience we have. But when we don't understand what we're looking at, or when things are always changing, like, we need the data. We need to be able to trust the data. And that's where I think a lot of this confusion comes from.
Yeah, I was looking for my X-Wing to go attack Shaun.
Yeah,
but he's flying TIE fighters through the screen.
I was looking for all my props. But, I mean, and again, data versus gut. You feel that your website's working well. You like the look of it. It's beautiful. It's responsive. It does some really cool stuff. Maybe your organic traffic is down. Maybe your conversion's down. And if they say, like, the average website converts form field submissions of around 2%, there's other very large organizations who are sending out reports to dealers that are maybe OEM approved or OEM recommended, that it'll show, hey, your conversion ratio is 20%. And you're like, holy God, we're knocking the cover off the ball. But it's because conversion ratios are measured differently. Some are including just looking at an hours and directions page. Some are looking at a contact form. Others mean actual submitting of a form. So until there is almost a unified metric and we get together to identify what is the one way that all vendors can do, then dealers are going to need to invest time in their own efforts to understand, or they're going to need to invest, dollars to figure out and to find trust advisors to do this for them.
How would a dealer do this?
Someone was trying to push the whole idea of having, I like your coin on that, Bill, magic metric. But someone was trying to come up with a platform where everything was measured equally across, especially when it came down to dealership websites. I forget who was trying to push that across the industry. But
I know Bill's been speaking about it for years. I think Pash had a meeting once, a meeting of the mind. The only downside of that is you would need such a large swath of trusted people to do it that are not financially incentivized for the results one way or the other.
How do you feel?
Not that Brian isn't just saying that, or Brian isn't just saying that it would take a lot of macro level thinking to decide how those metrics are going to play out, because it will change the way the majority of vendors operate their reporting, operate their businesses.
Right. I mean, to that point, part of it is a lot of these different vendors is that they don't have all the data. They got to acquire pieces of data. They have to append data from different sources. So part of the issue you run into with people who don't have all the data natively is that they color it somehow. So, I just spoke with Experian at NADA. They don't have any money to gain from SEO or SEM or anything like that at all. So, I mean, I think they give you a good objective view, but they also have all the data from search traffic all the way to registration. They can give you an alpha to omega view, or as close as you can get to it. That's really why I've gravitated towards that. I'm not a paid endorser or anything, but I really love looking at that data for my clients, because I can be very confident in what I'm seeing. It's not something where somebody's trying to sell a product to me or just spend more money, or there's not that solution that's involved. It's just very objective, and it is what it is. and I get some takeaways that either I can get from them or I can interpret it my own way and deploy it that in my advertising.
Sounds like some accountability management.
Exactly.
So if we could, I would like to just focus a little bit more on the website piece. Obviously, kind of near and dear to my heart because I've spent time with a lot of website companies. And just like you guys, I mean, I know all of the CEOs of all of them. They're all friends. They all do good things. Some are better in some areas. But when it comes to gut versus data on websites, think about how dealers have been making decisions for websites for the last 20 years. Aesthetics are more important than the results, right? So the conversation happens where it's like, hey, what kind of websites do you like? Give me some examples. And what does the dealer do? They send them whatever the hottest, cool looking shit is. And they're like, oh, great, this is what I really like. And then those are defined in our industry around website providers as best practices. Those are not best practices. Those are everyone else chasing each other, their tails, similar designs, similar layouts, similar VDPs, all that stuff means that they're just still copying each other, right? And so a dealer ends up being enamored with aesthetics and the way things look, and it's often sold based on the way it looks. This is not based on data whatsoever, because how many dealers have you ever heard say, I'm thinking about making a website change, but I only want to make one if it's going to improve my performance, if it's only going to increase my conversion rate, because I spend a shit ton of money driving traffic to my website that doesn't even convert 2%, right? Well, they don't know that, or they're not thinking about that. So they're chasing after what looks cool, the new design trend, which is all based on gut, right? Not on, is this a bad move? Because what essentially the dealer should be thinking is, should we go in a completely revolutionary path for site redesign, which means one provider to the next, or should we actually think maybe evolutionary makes more sense? I'm just going to throw an example, not because I'm a fan of one website provider over the other, but let's say you're with dealer.com, right? And let's say that you're like, I know there's some things that they can do better. I mean, there's a lot of things they can do better, but let's just say that you realize that and you don't want to make the move. You may not need to make the move because you should first start with an evolutionary thought process that's data focused on what can we do to improve conversion rate optimization with this platform. And if at the end of 90 days, 60 days, however long it takes to do the test that you, the dealer, are comfortable with, if the data doesn't prove to you that they're capable and competent so that they retain your business, then you move on and do something that's revolutionary. But way too many dealers make a big switch, sometimes because it's made easy within the OEM programs. There are so many of them. You can change with a 30-day notice, right? Which is terrible for those website providers because it drastically hurts their churn rates and how to manage and onboarding. And it's a nightmare, but not just for their sake. It's the dealer's sake that I'm more concerned about now. I mean, I'm done working for vendors for 20 plus years. Now it's, okay, how do we really help dealers figure it out? And that's one of the areas that, I mean, think about it. Is your website not still the most, whether you're talking the mobile or the desktop version, is it still not the most important component of all that you invest to get it the right way? And yet we still make all kinds of terrible instinctive decisions on websites.
Well, and you touched on something, Shaun. It's a lot of times the decisions are made because of co-op programs, the OEMs. Mm-hmm. And you know, who's making those decisions on the OEM side? Why are those decisions being made? Like they're through gut or they're through connections.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we have, just if I can really quick though, is there's an OEM. I just want to back you up on this, Shaun. There's a particular OEM that we see in the mystery shop all the time. They mystery shop the dealer. And part of the questions are about how the website looks. And it's so subjective. That has nothing to do with the dealership. The OEM picks how that's designed. But dealerships are still getting marked down. They're made to think that it's important somehow that their website looks good. And the person who's shopping that it's just up to them. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It's like saying that a pink Porsche 911 Turbo is slower than a black Porsche 911 Turbo, even though they're identical cars.
Mhm.
And most of us are car guys in this business, on this call, I guess, and watching this, or car people for that matter. But I mean, we'd say it's stupid. They're the exact same car underneath the skin, but one's a different color. And I think that's what we're talking about here. I think it's hilarious when you look at Amazon and it still follows the same old school F pattern that's been around for forever. And if you do research on UX through companies that study this stuff, they still say the F pattern exists. But yet there's this giant hero box on all the automotive websites. I think that's odd.
Ooh, Ryan Leslie just threw one out there. One that we miss big time, and that's Ling.
Ling. Yeah. Ling sells cars.
Yeah. She crushed it.
That's an anomaly for sure.
But I mean, like that is something to be said. Is in your gut, you would assume an attractive website, a pretty website, would serve you better or be a better representation of your brand. That might not always be the case. It's like it's like the famous song, if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, never make a pretty woman your wife. Like maybe the most attractive can cause dealers some of the most damage.
Yeah,
It doesn't help me at all because I'm married to the most beautiful woman in the world. That really goes against everything.
Being in the website game for as long as I have and is familiar, there it is. I can tell you that I have to remind myself on a pretty regular basis that my design preferences have absolutely nothing to do with what really converts, what really works. And here's an example of
this. It's the best car dealer website ever.
Listen, I want to make our website Paisley like right now, just because of this. All Paisley all the time.
This goes against everything.
That says Macam Sex.
I'm ordering everybody a Ling mug.
Look, it says Macam Sex. I'm guessing that means something different there.
Ling's a part of the Dealer Refresh community. We haven't seen her post.
She jumps in there from time to time and comments.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something, because one thing that's very true is that this has been a powerhouse for years, and we've all gotten lots of laughs about it, and the chickens and all the other crazy stuff that's on this site from time to time.
Oh, but her site map was amazing.
Here's another truth. How many more, if this decided to be, okay, this is the template to go and have a bunch of other people have the exact same stuff, do you think any of them would come close to the success of this site?
No, it's the people behind it. It's Ling.
Yeah.
And that's your point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the European car buying experience is very different than the United States. You got to go order a car, wait for it, and yeah.
Are you, well, then I'll ask you, Alex, are you saying that the role of the salesperson plays more, the salesperson plays more of a role in the sale in Europe than it does here?
I think that anytime you're ordering a vehicle, the sales agent needs to be a little more involved and keep the customer abreast of what's happening and when it's coming and any updates that are occurring in order to have a great experience. Whether or not that's performed or not, I don't know. I've never bought a car in England.
Jeff, for a Mercedes dealership, you cannot stock every single color and package configuration of Mercedes-Benz on your lot. What do you know, a rough estimate on what percentage of your vehicle or your deposits or sales are vehicles you have to go locate?
Make a gut call, Jeff.
Gut call. I'd probably group locates in with ordering because we do a lot of orders, and I would say between locates and orders, probably upwards of 50%.
If you're paying $125,000, $150,000 for a vehicle, you want what you want. And not to say that, hey, you know what truth is? Somebody paying $20,000 for a vehicle wants what they want.
And typically,
if they've got the patience for it.
Typically, those are ordered units, and typically those are people that, on average, are pretty well established in life and have the money to do so. You find they're of an older clientele on average and are a little bit more patient. So, you know, they're more willing to order the vehicle. If we can go get it, we'll go get it. But a lot of times they want something pretty exclusive, and even, you know, fishing through all the other dealership websites or other dealerships inventory, you're not going to find exactly what they want. So we do a lot of order units.
So let's bring this back around for a minute. So what I've heard so far is a lot of talk about, you know, we should be using the data. However, we can't really trust the data. We can't trust the vendors. We can't trust the OEMs to do the right thing. You know, there's a lot of issues around the data.
Yeah, but it's easier for us to trust our gut.
Well, are we kind of saying you have to trust your gut?
Well, I think to a point we have to
So
trust our
here,
gut.
I would say,
Or do you have to hire DealerKnows?
No. I will back up what Alex said. I will back up what Alex says, though. If dealers, you know, a dealership owner and operator likely didn't get to that level without being able to read other people, or moreover, build relationships with other people. If they do not have a good feeling about the vendors that they meet, if they're walking up and down, the conference exhibit halls, and they're shaking hands with vendor after vendor and booth babe after booth babe, then by all means, sorry about that. Then they will need to trust their gut instincts to say, I don't have a good feeling about this person. I do not have a feeling about this company. I do not feel that this person's giving me data that I should deem trustworthy. So they can have that initial reaction, or they can compartmentalize it and say, I'm going to need to do more research before I make a significant decision. Bill just released a blog today, and I believe it's, or it's going to be, and it's will be on DealerRefresh shortly. But it is about, we are seeing lead volume slowly trickle less. We are seeing sales, sales are not going to be what they were this year. So knowing that the sale of automobiles is going to be less, we're seeing clients make drastic decisions like, hey, we're selling less cars. It must be the website. It must be paid search. It must be our SEO. It must be this. It must be that. And they're making these
national marketplace.
They're making drastic decisions because there are so many vendors calling on them every day. There's so many people saying, I'm going to be the answer to your problem. And they are making these decisions, making these switches before they do enough investigating, or as Shaun said, before they start identifying what can I do with my current vendors to improve these metrics, rather than just jumping ship and making drastic changes or overhauls to my marketing budget or my platforms and my technology.
Yeah, and there's some blame to go on the vendor there too, for sure. A lot of them, might be shuffling through client advisors or client support people, and might have quite a, let's call it a rookie client support division, and just can't communicate with the dealer like they used to. Typically happens as companies get older.
I think that's really where the gut feeling comes from, is that I think before you had to trust your gut. And I think now with the almost the kind of the fire hydrant of data we get, we don't quite know what to trust. So I think that, in lieu of having standards, which I get loud and obnoxious about all the time, but until we have those, you sort of have to trust your gut. And so, I think maybe part of the vendor community could be better at educating the dealers on more of the fundamentals, not just like, here's our magic metric, believe it, but this is how it gets there. And it kind of goes to Shaun's point a little bit too, is like letting them know, like, here, like, this is the testing we're doing. This is how we're conducting it. These are the dealerships that we're using as part of our sample. I think a lot of stuff could be done to train the dealer's gut. I think going back 25, 30 years before we had a lot of this stuff, I mean, your gut was pretty smart because you trusted people. That was all you had. So if you were able to identify people who are trustworthy, or people you want to listen to, or people who are experts, like, you could trust them just to give you the information and feel good about that. But I think when you have that layered on top of all this data and a lot of sort of arguments over what's right and what's wrong and no real standards. I think this is where the data and the gut thing really kind of comes to a rock and a hard place. So what do you trust, the data or your gut? Or do you look at the data, then go back to your gut? And I think that's what a lot of people have to do is use both. I don't think it's a data versus gut. You can't trust one or the other. You got to look at both. It's not just like eating a strawberry where it's like, oh, it's red and it's sweet because it's a strawberry, right? Everybody knows what that is. It's a lot more complicated, a lot more nuanced than that. And I think just as a whole industry, we got to be better about doing that stuff and understanding like what the actual fundamentals are. What are the actual whys and the whats that are going on before we can make these snap judgments and just neutron bomb our web provider because it doesn't look good enough, or fire a bunch of staff, or get TrueCar and car gurus and just layer on a bunch of third-party leads. And funny enough, I want to share this with you guys. I just got off a training call, and I talked to the agent about being overwhelmed, and she's like, "Well, how do you know I'm overwhelmed? Why do you think that I feel that way?" I'm like, "Well, looking at March, you had 1,000 leads, and you sold the exact same amount of cars as you've sold pretty much the last 18 months straight. Nothing's moved. Just the fact that you're doing 200 to 300 more leads a month than you should be doing is the reason why I know you're overwhelmed, because it's not moving the needle." And so here's a dealership that is obviously investing tons of resources into acquiring more leads, but it's not selling them any more cars.
Yeah. And they didn't acquire any more staff.
Yeah, exactly. Same staff, just more leads, and now they're closing like 3%. Funny thing is they get about half as many leads this month, and they're closing at 6%. At least they're not spending that money to get the same results. And I think this is where, we have to use our gut to check ourselves and realize what we're doing, because a lot of times I think dealerships just hurting themselves by doing this.
Yeah, and
this is Mr. Data saying that you got to use your gut. And he's Mr. Data because look how freaking clean those shelves are behind them. Color-coordinated books and everything.
Yep.
Well, speaking of using data and gut, what about vehicle acquisition? We've got a lot of programs out there, Viato and such, AX if they're still around. Car Insights is another one through Car Story. Yet, being on the dealership level, I know that a lot of times which vehicles we're going to keep and sell on the lot versus what we're going to wholesale. A lot of times it comes down to gut as much as I hate
It's because a lot of the buyers are like this. I called it about $8,000. They look through the window. They know it before they look in a book. They know it before they enter it in Viato. They, it's the same way that we judge people based on their appearance or based on their name or based on the information submitted in the lead.
Or their bookcase behind them. We make those snap judgments about them.
Oh, Bill, we all know that you're the data geek. You wear that like a badge of honor.
Or their teleprompter.
Yeah. Or a picture of Chevy Chase, signed by Chevy Chase, that Bill got me punching the moose in National Lampoon's Vacation. So, but one more, so that tells you all you need to know about me. That's hanging in my office. So, but what I would say is, I think what DealerRefresh can do, what DealerRefresh does is it takes a lot of different voices and it gives everybody a platform. Sometimes that's a positive, sometimes that's a negative. But you've got trusted people that are editors, if you will, or I don't know what you call them, like, content people that you trust to know and to do well in automotive retail, who go in and willfully help moderate the forums and share best practices. And the collective, there was a good show that got canceled within the first season with Jeremy Piven, and the name's escaping me, but it just talks about wisdom of the crowd. Got canceled after one season, but it shows that the collective is actually smarter than the outliners. So, much like an Ask the Audience, even on hard questions in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the audience almost always is right with their guess because the collective is smarter than the individual in most cases. So what data allows us to do is allows us to validate a lot of the things that we've said have been working and are working. Data allows us to validate and make sure it's right. And I have done things where I have trained things that I thought, and then the data comes out and says, you know what? Don't use the word in stock in your email templates. Use the word available. So the next thing I have to do is my team and I have to go through every single CRM from all of our clients and go into every one of the 150 so templates that we've installed in every one that might have the word in stock in it and change it to available. Like, because this is what we could be, because I was wrong. I've been using the word in stock for my entire career. I have to change it based on the data showing in stock's a negative, the word available is a positive. So I own it and I go and change it.
What are some more? Give us some more examples, Joe, where you are wrong.
Oh,
and you have to go back through and make adjustments.
I could bring my wife in here.
Facebook feed.
I could bring my wife in here and
that wouldn't be fair.
How about the fact that I thought that you were moving to Colorado, and it turns out that somebody created and friended me with you, and somebody trolled you and created a second Facebook.
I'm going to have to get to the bottom of this one.
I didn't know that. That's really good.
It's probably Arnold Tiarina.
Make sure your friend Jeff Kershner's other Facebook page. Give whoever that is a real good boost.
He's an imposter. But no, seriously, are there any? I mean, I never thought about in stock versus availability. These are some small things, and I think whenever we go through our Refresh Friday, what are some cool, some takeaways that our listeners can take away with? And that's something small, simple, but it's still something. Obviously, we got a ton of things that they can take away with, but what are some of these small nuggets?
Well, and I'll tell you, I got this thing.
Between pre-owned versus used
on search.
Yeah. Do you guys
Which
remember
one's better, Shaun?
Well, do you remember the website GoogleFight.com? It may still exist, but there used to be a cooler version of it. And somebody just built a query engine that you could take one keyword and pit against the other. And this goes back eons ago for me, but I started to test, well, how many searches using used car, used truck versus pre-owned, right? Pre-owned was developed by whose marketing agency? Lexus, I think. Might have been somebody else. But that's an example of we made up that, the industry made up pre-owned, and most people search for used. So I don't know that I haven't looked into this from a research perspective in years, but I do remember that it was more catastrophic. Oh, it's still out there. I wonder if it still works. So yeah, look for it.
I'd like to check out Chevy versus Chevrolet.
Yeah, or a used car versus pre-owned car.
You do know you're spelling Chevrolet wrong, right?
Yeah, so that's really going to be Chevrolet.
He's such a dealer.
What was the other one? Used car versus new car?
Or you could just spell Chevrolet wrong. Well,
used car versus pre-owned. Yeah. Yeah, it used to have these two stick figures that would literally beat the crap out of each other, and then you'd see the winner. So
hey, now's the time to start saying crap, Shaun. Come on, you've already broke that seal, buddy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, maybe
he already dropped a frick.
Yeah.
Did I actually drop an F-bomb?
I think you bleeped
it out yourself. I don't know how you did that.
Oh yeah. I can sense.
I guess it doesn't work anymore.
So it's not working anymore. But I mean, that's another really good example where I think we'd all. And again, I'm doing this based on gut. My gut says people search Chevy and not Chevrolet. The majority of domains that we come across for our GM dealers say Chevrolet. So the question is, which one's better? I do not have the data behind that. That's one of the benefits of having a Shaun, because he knows websites like Google Fight that I would have never known about.
Yeah, by the way, Steve Stawning says these are the lamest Google Fights ever. I have to agree, especially with this crowd.
Yeah, but Stawning knows. In fact, when I probably first stumbled upon
keep it clean.
Google Fight.
It's amazing how clean we've kept it.
Yeah, Stawning and I might have been at Reynolds at the same time when I first stumbled across Google Fight. So he might remember it was actually a cool little funky site way back when. Not so much anymore. Hey, I wanted to say something though on this, since how we're talking gut versus data. There is something, and I just really didn't think about it until we're all on this call live to the world, millions of people watching. But our instincts as they develop, right, over time, as we grow and we get older and we meet people, the gut instinct or the instincts that we end up having are very tied to the people part, right? The seeing people's leadership traits, when you get a sense of whether somebody feels like they're a nice person to you. You have people all the time that will say, like, I just had a bad feeling about this situation. I just had a bad feeling about this person. I didn't feel, connected. Their energy was really negative, right? And there's really no way to explain that. For me, I think that's a spiritual thing. I think that everything in life, not religious per se, but spiritually, there's something that is really hard to explain scientifically. And I think that actually speaks a lot to our gut or our instinct around people. And I know I can just speak from my own personal experience. The network that I have built over years and years and years comes out of gut, comes out of instinct, experience with, and guess what? It's attracted a network of people that some of those people are kind of data scientist type of people. It also has enabled me to have relationships with dealers and other people where I take my desire for database results and share with them. So there are people in my network that connected with me through their gut instinct. They're like, he's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. He's approachable, good energy, whatever. And then they end up getting that side of me. Their gut instinct brings them to somebody who then does care about, well, what are the data points? How do we prove this? So, it's kind of an interesting thing that we're data versus gut, but they're both in play, and they're probably always going to be both in play. And the gut side of it is really probably more important as it relates to the people that you're building in your network.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, I fully agree. Every single relationship that I've probably built is based a lot more on gut and how they make me feel, how I make them feel, and how we've served each other or just gotten along. Absolutely, without question. With that said,
I do a spreadsheet on everybody. I don't know.
What's that?
I do a spreadsheet on everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe you have evidence manuals of but what I would say is, like, from a dealer cannot just trust that they know their market, and they cannot just trust that they know their customers. They may have sold cars for 30 years, and don't get me wrong, there are dealers out there who have been extremely successful without spending any money on really shiny objects or bells and whistles. Just by they created a brand for their dealership because there's 75 years of actually serving customers well and caring about customers and having good people that like working for them and like serving their customers. And that's sometimes all you need. And if you do not have like those well-trained, loyal, influential people working for you, then you do sometimes need to invest in the bells and the whistles and the shiny objects. But one way or the other, I think dealers, like at that Experian event at NADA that Bill was on a panel speaking about, there was somebody there on the panel that worked for a dealer group, and I think their title was like Director of Market Intelligence. And that's all their sole job is, like the market, like understanding their market. And if you had asked Jeff and I or Alex or any of them, well, we're all old guys right now, but if you had asked us 10 years ago, not even 15 or 20, 10 years ago, do you see a dealer group needing a director of market intelligence just to analyze market data? You'd be like, Jesus, we can't even get people to respond back to leads fast. Like, I mean, there's a crawl, walk, run happening on automotive where very few people are running hard and the other people are like stumbling with a broken leg. And they're stumbling with a broken leg not because they haven't embraced data. They're stumbling with a broken leg because they only embrace gut.
Yeah, but I think this is where it gets too problematic though too, and just to tie into that is that things are always changing. And so to go back to what Joe was talking about before about looking at the semantics, like those things are constantly changing. We're constantly updating the content of our templates and stuff like that to reflect those changes. But I think when we develop our gut, like it has to evolve. A lot of markets are changing rapidly. I mean, Shaun, you live in Frisco, right? I think when I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I mean, Frisco was like the boondocks. That was like where people went to go like put chickens in their backyard and stuff.
Beards.
Right. So, and that was, back in the early 2000s. And so here we are, 15, 20 years later. Now it's like Shaun Raines area, or like suburbia, right? Like, so things change constantly. So if you're not adapting to your customer base, then you're missing those opportunities. I mean, DC, Denver, all of the Texas cities have grown considerably. I mean, when I moved to Austin, it was, 750,000 people. But since then, it's got like 32,000 people moving there a day or something like that for 20 years. I mean, it's a completely different city. There are whole city blocks that are gone. And to think that your market hasn't changed because of that, that's pretty crazy, I think. So this is where we have to look at the data. We have to understand, like, this is my gut. I want to trust my gut, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things have changed a little bit. Maybe I should ask some more questions or expand my network to get to understand this a little better, because you might be missing out on opportunities. I mean, maybe your gut is right, and maybe you're only reaching 10% of the available people in your market, and you're missing out on another 20% of people who want to take advantage of your services, but you're simply ignoring them or not accommodating them because you're only trusting your gut.
So use data as an insight to your gut.
Absolutely. That's what I do. That's how I became the data nerd. I didn't trust my gut. I was new to the business. So I had to look stuff up all the time. And, Joe likes to talk about it, and we talk about it a lot internally, and Jeff and I have talked about it as well. People who are kind of OGs and starting this business, like, we didn't have stuff like DealerRefresh until we built it, to go on. And so a lot of us had to experiment quite a bit. We had gut instincts, and we were, pretty smart people, I think, and hard workers. But in order to take our business to that next level or get the budget that we needed from our ownership, we had to do those tests. And I think this is where, again, this is what propelled my career, is not trusting my gut, was looking at the data and confirming my suspicions and, okay, hey, I was wrong about that. Maybe it's something, could be something as simple as new versus pre-owned, or available versus on the lot, just simple little things. But even that's not a given. In 10 years time, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's people are just looking at pictograms by then because they've been looking at Instagram too much or something. I don't know, but we have to evolve, and we always have to keep changing. And that's what that data tells us, is like, okay, cool. Like, my gut's pretty smart, but let me just take a look and see. Let me peek behind the curtain and see if I'm still right. If not, now I got some more information that I can look at and then apply my gut and go, this is where I need to go next.
So,
Joe, you've helped. I'm sure you've helped a lot of dealerships hire staff, especially within the internet departments and all that good stuff. What do you see with dealerships? Are dealerships still hiring employees based off gut, or are they using some form of data out there to?
Oh, I mean, well, so
it's the mirror test, right?
I don't need to finish the question. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to say there are. I know, because I know we're going with this, because you and I are of like mind.
Yeah.
So what I will say is,
You complete me.
there are
Hi, can you give me a beer? Sorry.
There are great companies out there, Hireology being one, where they do the assessment and sort of the talent recruitment for you, and analyze the people that would be the best fits for the organization, and then they serve those dealers with qualified candidates. Whether or not those dealers choose to hire them is a completely different story, because hiring happens in a dealership. One of the problems with automotive, in my opinion, if we're going to talk about hiring, is the fact that anybody that sold cars for like 1 month can go to any other dealership and get hired that day. Like, literally, you sell cars for a month, you're like permanently tenured in this industry. You can go anywhere and you can find a place that'll hire you on day one, and therein lies the problem. So, is that my wife you're talking to, Shaun? So, I will say that by and large, the people that are hiring just say things along the lines of they look for people that remind them of themselves. They don't look they don't hire saying I'm going to hire everybody as if they have the passion and the drive to one day be an owner of an organization. They say I want to hire somebody who's like me because it's going to make my life easier. And moreover, managers have never been trained to interview or hire. They've never gone to any classes about it. So they say something along the lines of, there's your resume. Oh, great. You worked over at ABC, huh? Yeah, good stuff. Good. Jim still over there? Jim? Yeah. Yeah, no, Jim and I go fishing. Cool. So Cubs fan or White Sox fan? Yeah, Cubs, good. Yeah, White Sox. I like them. I say we get them. Like that is, there's no data that goes behind it. People are confusing longevity with, what are you looking at? Longevity with experience, and or what you've accomplished. So for that reason, I would strongly say, yes, dealers need to start investing and looking at data to determine whether or not they're hiring the right candidates without question. And then they need to build strong orientation and training programs to make sure that we're training people and giving them the best ability to be successful for themselves and not just throwing them to the wolves. Because I think all five of us likely were thrown to the wolves when we started in retail.
We just keep it a lot simpler than that. Somebody walked in, we had a mirror in the desk, you just pulled it out and said, here, blow on this. If you fog it, you're hired.
I was thrown to old Joe Verdi VHS tapes. What are you talking about? That's the best.
That's great for you. There for 3 days and watch this shit.
So we are coming up on the hour. We had notes around something. I think it was, I thought this was pretty neat. And not so much a gut versus data. But it was something Cliff Banks was talking about the other day. And it had to do with the F&I department, and the F&I manager, I guess he couldn't figure out why they were getting knocked really hard on their CSI scores when it came down to the F&I process. And then they made a few changes on the showroom floor. I know we talk about that, if we just change the showroom floor, if we change this around, we change it around, we throw some balloons out there on the cars, we'll sell more cars, But they actually made this change. Cheers to you, bro. Strawberry. Nice, strawberry blonde. What
strawberry.
Never mind.
He obviously is not wearing pants.
I thought that was a real
they made a change to the showroom floor, and they added some glass where customers could now see into the F&I room. And the fact that customers were able to see that the F&I person was busy, their CSI scores went up. Did you hear anything about that, Alex?
Yeah, he was telling both of us that story.
Yeah, that's right. You were part of that.
Hey, you were there.
I was there.
That was like the guy that tells you to tell a story, and he tells you, tell all about the time you fell down that hill and then you broke your leg.
I'm typically multitasking whenever we're doing it. All right.
Yeah. Riveting. I was almost able to listen to the whole story without wanting to crack a beer, but
Yeah, that's what I thought about.
So, what takeaways do we have for the audience today, fellas? Sounds like we're saying they've got data and gut are both just as important.
No. What I'd say is, if anything, it is time. Like, gut will always be there. Gut has always been there. It is time to stop trying to sabotage data to validate what you believe, but instead be willing to make changes, be willing to make decisions based on data. As I said, everywhere we go, there will always be every conference Shaun has ever spoken in front of, every conference audience Jeff has ever spoken in front of, myself or Bill, there are always going to be naysayers in the audience. And they're very rarely naysayers because of data. They're naysayers because of gut. And it is time that we as an audience embrace data and are willing to change some of the things we believe in based upon the data provided to us, but we can't just trust one piece of data. We need to come collectively. We need to utilize companies such as DealerRefresh and others to scrape through the sales pitches of vendors, find the trusted advisor, find the people we believe in and trust, maybe through data or maybe through the collection of data and great minds. And we need to start changing our own beliefs about where this industry is going based on data, not just our gut.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, on that,
my takeaway is don't forget anyone that's watching is don't forget to check out Ling's cars. Blow your mind. Go against
Google Fight.
Yeah,
or Google Fight.
Google Fight's lame now. It used to be amazing, so I'm disappointed in where it's gone. Ling's still hanging in there as a terrible example of screen vomit that somehow is popular, which tells me I will never want to be a person living there. So anyway, that's all.
Well, I think it's a good example of branding yourself. I mean, that's what she's done. She's branded herself.
That's why I made the comment of you could not take that and template it across a bunch of people that are trying to accomplish the same thing. It doesn't work. Yet we have a lot of people in our industry that like to say that their formula of whatever they do is the one and it can be duplicated over and over. It can't, especially when it's so tied to Ling in this case. My little takeaway, guys, I think that gut and data science are almost equally important. If I'm talking to a dealer, I'm telling the dealer, your gut, your instinct, hopefully it's well developed over years, is going to be so much in play when it comes to the people part, right? People part. But if you're then using that, to Joe's point, to mask your inability, or not willful, but your ignorance on things that are definitely dependent on results, data-driven results, you're going to have serious problems. So instinct for people, data for business results, because then you can actually say, no, your conversion rate isn't acceptable. It's this. I know what it is. I'm holding myself responsible, so I can hold you responsible. And now all of a sudden, we're making bacon. So gut, instinct, definitely for people. But if you rely on it for all the data, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed.
My takeaway is you need both. I think if you're just trusting your gut all the time, you're bound to overlook some things and just make some simple mistakes or miss out. I think if you're only trusting data, and it actually just goes what Shaun just said there, if you're only looking at Ling and going, hey, this is what I need to do, then you should trust your gut, because you got to question that stuff all the time. So I think you have to have a good intuition. And I think that comes with experience. And when you have a lot of experience and you've seen a lot of things, and if you've measured a lot of things over time, then you can trust your gut. You have to train your gut because it's that data. So I want to say it's chicken and egg. I hate to play both sides of it, but I think without having a gut instinct, you're never going to go to look at the data to try to prove yourself wrong. If you're interested in that type of stuff, being scientific about it and doing things the right way every time. But if you're only trusting the data and no experience, then you're oftentimes going to do it wrong. I've just seen it time and time again. We all have somebody trying to replicate something that happened at somebody else's dealership one time because they saw the data at a conference, and what they're looking at is an anomaly with one brand in one market. And so they should trust their gut. They should question that. I think as you're talking to people about data, since I guess I'm the self-proclaimed data nerd, or bestowed upon me data nerd with the organized books. And I appreciate all the comments, by the way, about my hair and the books, guys. Thank you so much on Facebook.
Are you using a curling iron now? That was a question from the audience.
Yeah, it's humid. That's what it is, really. I'm humid and I have Mediterranean blood. I'm sorry. Okay. But anyway, like I said, what you should say to people when they're talking about it, your gut should say, how did you get there? And I think that's the most important thing. When somebody starts spewing a bunch of data at you, ask them how they got there. If they can walk you through those steps and it's something that you can replicate based on those steps, then it's sound. I think where we run into a lot of problems with this, and I think somebody else had commented on the garbage in, garbage out, is that we're not looking at the steps it takes to get there. And I think, if you've graduated high school, you've taken the chemistry class in all likelihood, you know how to mix that, vinegar and baking soda together and blow stuff up with it. go through the steps and remind yourself how you did that. And you can do that experiment anywhere in any country with vinegar and baking soda. It doesn't matter what the conditions are, but you can make that happen. And when it comes to the best practices and stuff and the shiny objects for Steve Sonning, is that if you can make it work at your store under the same conditions, and you can probably make it work anywhere. You just need to know how to get there. So you need both gut and data.
Well said, Bill. Now, should we move into the final round, fellas?
What's the final round?
Refresh Friday with 5 questions.
You got a few questions for each other.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why don't we go like alphabetical order here? So Bill, you're starting. Year you started in the car business. What was it?
2003.
All right, Joe.
2001.
Sean.
1990.
All right, old.
What were you, 5?
Well, it was the car business. I worked in an auto parts warehouse when I was in college, so that's what I got in. Fell in love with the girl. Married
Okay,
her.
fine. But I want to
I
adjust
started
mine because
at
I actually worked at a
9.
factory. It's 18. Okay. So if we want to go back there, we'll go back to.
Yeah, man, I worked in an oil refinery. Is that the car business?
Okay, if you want digital, then 1998.
Better.
All right. Have you only ever been in the car business? Bill.
No.
Joe.
No.
Sean.
Yes.
All right. Another one. All right. Bill, first car sold.
It was a old man blue Mercury Grand Marquis.
It was a, I want to say it was a used Toyota Highlander, or a new Toyota Highlander maybe.
You will know this dealership, Alex, at Bay Chevrolet. They're no longer in business, but I worked for them when I couldn't tell Reynolds I was. And the first car I sold, I literally took the approach of you walk the person to the showroom, you just turn around and walk.
Watch
It
them follow
works. That works so well.
It does work really well. Base model Chevy Cavalier.
All right.
Just pull that right up into the sold lane.
All right. So, Bill, biggest car deal. How many pounds was it?
I gotta think. Well, I'll take exotics out because those are a little more gross. I did like 12 grand on a exotic car one time, but in terms of mainstream cars, 5,500.
I will remember the guy's name. He's long passed away now. I won't share it, but his name is Julius. It's one of the few times I ever felt bad about selling a car. He was in a nursing home, and it was a 10-pounder on the leased Corolla.
Oh,
How do you do that?
It wasn't as much me, admittedly, as it was my man.
I mean, how do you sleep?
Listen, I didn't.
It was his last car. It was his last car.
He told me it was going to be his last car. I don't want to tell you. Listen, it's one of the only times I ever felt bad about it.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I thought I was going to feel bad almost at 5 grand. So 4,900 on a. Do you guys remember the Blazer Extreme? They had that purple color. Yeah, sold off of the showroom floor to a military kid, and I really felt bad. I felt like he was going to come back with like all of his family members from across the country.
Instead, he brought all of his family members to buy more cars.
Exactly.
he had a first payment default.
Hey,
I
it's
would
true
have
though.
this section. I would like to come back for Refresh Friday of just answering dumb questions like that.
I like this. This is fun.
All right, we'll do it again. All right, last question.
But quick to the point though, my happiest customers, no doubt, and I know that's always been a saying in the industry, your happiest customers are the ones who pay the most.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
This gentleman loved me. He came back in 2 days later. He was a former chief of police, and he handed me.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the dead guy. But
yeah, he's dead now. He's dead now.
It was Chicago, after all.
But he
His
handed
nightmares.
me like a sticker specifically for family members of like police chiefs or something. He said, "I've got nobody else in my family that speaks to me that I can give this to, so I want to give it to you." And he said, "Put it on your window right there, and leave your window rolled up, and they'll just walk away every single time." Nicest man. I'll always feel bad about that.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. Back to Georgia. All right. So last series you binge watch.
Last series I binge watched.
Yeah.
I pretty much binge watch everything anymore.
And you can mention porn. It's okay.
No, it wasn't that. I would say last kind of binge watch show that I've done was Parks and Recreation. We literally binge watched that one at home here, so that's a good show.
So I mean, I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of television or movies, so I'm definitely more of a movie guy. I've always been a movie guy through and through. I can fancy myself a movie buff. My wife likes TV shows, so we compromise and we watch TV shows. But I would say we did binge watch all like three seasons of Schitt's Creek on Netflix in a matter of like 3 days. It is just Canadian comedy gold, and Eugene Levy and his son specifically, is a comedy genius. And this coming from a guy who like takes that, like, it would take a lot for me to say that. This kid is gifted. So if
True story. True story.
It is great.
What's it called?
Schitt's Creek. SCHITT''S. Schitt's Creek. It's really good.
That's really clever.
Yeah.
Very clever. Well, if technically binge watching, meaning you just go until you are done, it's actually a couple of years ago when Tom White Jr. Basically said, you have to see Game of Thrones. I was late to the party, and I was up at Tom's place for like a 4th of July a couple summers ago, and he was like, you really haven't seen it? So like at 1 o'clock in the morning, I watch season 1, episode 1, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go. And I think I watched 6 episodes all through the wee hours of the morning. Like Tom had gone to bed. Like he gets up and he's like, what'd you think? And I'm like, I'm so addicted.
John's like, what?
Exactly. So I all the way up to, current at that time, with a wife who was like, that's just ridiculous. And then just her seeing me try to, watch episodes on a tablet or wherever I'm not bothering the family. Then she's like kind of interested. And now she and I are really big fans. So we're actually, I think, on season 4, and we don't, same thing probably with you guys, like moments where it's like I don't have anything to do and I can just relax on the couch at night. It's always late at night, and Crystal and I are like, let's watch an episode or two. And so we're doing that again for the 3rd or maybe the 4th time now through Game of Thrones. The rest of it for me is The Office is always on in my house because my kids love it. It's kind of like just great background. You can work and get a few laughs in, and it's baseball season, so there's always a baseball game on as well. And it's just like I'm my grandparents all over again.
But real quick, I want to give Jeff a shout out because my wife came back the other day and she said, "Hey, this girl, our friend Michelle, has been telling us forever to watch the Goldbergs." And I said, "My friend Jeff Kershner has been telling me to watch the Goldbergs for at least a few years now." And I will say that we've probably watched 15 episodes of the Goldbergs over the course of the last couple weeks.
It's a great show.
Oh,
I've been stuck on Lost.
My sponsors, though, Star Wars, Shiner, Bach, and Winston Cigarettes. I just wanted them all to get a little shout out.
I've been, to wrap it up there, I've been on the Lost in Space remake through Netflix.
Oh, is it good?
I've enjoyed it. Yeah, I usually knock out 2 or 3 episodes a night. So.
Do you watch it with your son? Because your son is about the same age as mine.
Yes, and it's a great family show. Anyone can watch it.
Oh, so it'll keep his attention.
It keeps mine and keeps my son. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
More importantly, it keeps Jeff's.
Yeah. My son, he'd rather watch Atlanta, but that's a good show too. Anyway, so we're wrapping it up. It's 2:15. We went way over, but we
longest Refresh Friday yet.
Yeah.
We knew this was coming too.
Yeah, as long as we keep it going, we could probably go on another hour. But if you're watching, thank you. If you're still hanging on Facebook Live, thanks again. Be sure to jump over to our YouTube page, subscribe. And of course, we'll be back here next Friday, same time. I think next week we've got Ryan and Chad from over at Vast, right?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
Awesome.
and I
That'll
want
be
to thank you guys so much for having us. We really appreciate it. I know you reached out to us as soon as Shaun decided to come aboard to DealerKnows and partner with us, and we really appreciate you guys giving us a platform. And just listen, all we like doing is talking to good, like-minded people like yourselves, and we appreciate the time you spent with us today.
Well, we appreciate you and everything you do, Joe, and everything that Dealer On does. And Bill and Shaun, thank you very much. We'll see you guys real soon.
And Dealer Refresh 1. Hurry up, hit it quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again.